This is heavy stuff, but I know we're also got a few more things to talk about. Again, there's a separate video, Countdown to Crisis. There's a link below that talks about how this crash is going to be fast, bloody, and unavoidable. It's londonreal.tv/Jim, but you also talk about how you can position yourself to profit from this. I want to talk about the war in Ukraine, because you said that Russia's winning in Ukraine, both on the ground and in the financial war. And maybe first we kind of zoom out, because like you said, from a humanitarian level, no one likes to see what's happening there. But also It's important to diagnose what actually is happening there. So maybe you can speak on how you see that conflict.
Well, all wars are filled with lies and propaganda. That just comes with the territory. Winston Churchill's famous quote was, in wartime, the truth is so important it must be surrounded by a bodyguard of lies, which is exactly right. So Ukraine lies, Russia lies, got it. So the hard part for an analyst is where can I get good information? Where can I get somebody who is actually trying to report? Not easy to do, but there's some good sources. The Swiss, for example, the Swiss, like a nice peaceful country. There's a machine gun under every bed in Switzerland. Every parking lot is a bomb shelter, and this place is heavily armed. Every responsible adult has been in the military. You don't get anywhere if you haven't. But a lot of Swiss military at the colonel level, they'll retire and join like UN peacekeeping forces, and some of them were in eastern Ukraine. So they got some really good firsthand experience, and they care about getting it right. Agence France actually is doing a very good job. Macron has the best dialogue with Putin. I'm not saying he's a fan, but those two guys talk. And Agence France press is a good source. There are other sources, but you got to dig. But that said, the Ukrainian propaganda operation, when I see that, the particular kind of propaganda, I knew they were losing from the start, because they wouldn't have been doing what they were doing. For example, remember in the early days of the war, you'd see Instagram or Twitter or whatever, there would be a woman in camouflage with an automatic rifle. It's like everyone in Ukraine is picking up arms and standing up for the country. And, the Ukrainians are very attractive people. They kind of descended from Vikings in a lot of cases. But I said, these women look like models. Like, all right, you volunteer, you care about your country, but they all look like Vogue models. Turns out they were models who were like dressing up in camo and holding guns. It's like, okay, you're lying out of the gate. They show a film of a Russian tank being blown up, and then you see 20 in 20 days. It was the same tank. They kept showing it from different angles, etc. And the Russians are kind of keeping their mouths shut. There's propaganda, of course, but they were just getting it done. This has been slow, brutal, bloody, but relentless. And Russia, of course, they had Crimea since 2014. They built the land bridge from Russian territory to Crimea. They took Mariupol, which was not only a critical port on the Sea of Azov, but it was the hotbed of the neo-Nazis, the Azov Brigade. And when I say neo-Nazis, I'm not throwing names around. These guys are neo-Nazis. They trace the roots back to Stefan Bandera and what happened in World War II when they sided with the Nazis to fight the Russians. So, and the reason Putin went for it, and that was so bloody and protracted, well, there are three reasons. One, critical port. Two, major steel industry. But three, he wanted to eliminate the Azov Brigade, the Nazi element in the Ukrainian armed forces. And he did. He accomplished all three things. They got Luhansk, they got Donetsk, they've got Severodonetsk. They're moving slowly. They've learned. They made some mistakes for sure, but they've learned from their mistakes. They've got Odessa in their sights. Ukrainian casualties are high. Is the U.S. sending some weapons? Yeah. Germany, by the way, is not sending any more weapons because they're not going to have any natural gas if they do. And the thing is, I've never seen a war that was easier to avoid. All that had to happen before the war, as late as early February, Biden picks up the phone, calls Zelensky, says, we're going to issue a joint statement saying Ukraine will not join NATO. Ukraine will remain neutral. It doesn't have to be pro-Russian, neutral. We'll give Donbass, Luhansk and Donetsk, a high degree of autonomy, but they can kind of remain in the country. And on that basis, Putin will say, okay, that's good enough for me. That's what I want. And we're done. No war. that's where this is going to end up with a big difference. You'll still have that conversation to end the war, which never should have started. But Russia's not giving the land back. I mean, they fought and suffered to take it. Of course, the Ukrainians suffered to defend it, but they're not going to give it back. Why should they? I mean, I saw stories, the United Nations is warning African countries, don't take grain from Russia because they stole it from Ukraine. I said, don't you people understand anything about war? When you win and get territory, you get to keep the stuff. It's like the Palestinians in Israel. Israel fought 4 wars and they were 4 for 4. They won all 4 wars. So they get to keep stuff. And that's how wars work. I don't know what fantasy land people are living in these days. Maybe they don't study history, but Putin does. And so you'll still have peace talks at some point, but Ukraine's not getting that land back. And the longer they protract this, the less they're going to have, because Putin's got his sights set on Odessa, and he'll have the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. And so that's kind of the state of the war. Now, I said they're winning on the ground, which I just described, and they're winning the financial war. So Biden, who's saying he's dumb and senile, doesn't. That's not enough. I mean, he's worse than that, because when he is temporarily lucid, he's a mean, what. So, and he's been pretty much wrong about everything. So he has a guy in the Treasury. Now, by the way, Yellen's clueless. Yellen, she's a statistics geek from Berkeley who doesn't understand anything we're talking about. So she's the Secretary of the Treasury. But there's a number 2 guy there named Wally Adeyemo. Wally is the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury. He's point on sanctions. He's the sanctions guy. And by the way, not all, but a lot of my work for the intelligence community and the Pentagon was exactly on this topic: financial warfare, economic science. They didn't need me to jump out of a helicopter with a knife between my teeth. I was the financial warfare guy. And I still teach a course at the U.S. Army War College. I did this most recently in April. Wally, I'll give him IQ points, but he's never had like a regular job in his life. He gets out of Harvard. Yale. I think he had the misfortune of going to Yale. He then goes into the Obama National Security Council as a junior. I carried Larry Fink's briefcase for about a year, one of these executive assistants. But the problem with carrying Larry Fink's briefcase is you're stuck in the same bubble as Larry Fink. I mean, Larry Fink just talks to people who, agree with him. It's like the Aspen Institute, Davos crowd. So you're not getting any real good information. And then he goes back and is Treasury Secretary. So the guy knows sanctions. I'll give him that. He's slapping them on left and right. I've never seen a more stringent, lengthy array of sanctions in any matter, including Iran in 2012. But he has no idea what he's doing because he doesn't understand the blowback. So let me just give you a couple examples. So he said, we're going to seize the oligarch assets, those yachts, those bank accounts, those, homes in Belgravia, we're taking it all. And they have. I mean, Boris Johnson took a lot of stuff, and some of the yachts have been towed into custody. But what they don't understand is Putin will send him a thank you note. Putin hates the oligarchs. The idea that by hurting oligarchs, you're hurting Putin is nonsense. Putin's base is the military, the intelligence, the Orthodox Church, and everyday Russian people. That's his base. He hates the oligarchs. Now, he's never wanted to take them on. He told them when they put, I forget, the Yukos guy, Kershatsky, I'm not sure of the name, but the head of Yukos, put him in jail. That was a message like, you guys can keep your money, but keep out of politics. If you do, you'll end up in the next cell, or worse, maybe you'll have a poisoned lunch in London.